When it comes to bass fishing, you don't have to go far to find frustration. The world of bass fishing offers up a ton of frustration, and I'm going to talk about one of those frustrating situations that I have encountered over the years. I've finally found a way to control this situation. I'm going to pass it on to you. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. It's not going to cost you anything, really. And it's going to save you time, money, and frustration. What's the problem? Well, you're out there fishing wacky with a plastic worm. You cast out, you hook your fish. The first thing that happens, and you all know this, the worm rides up the shank of the hook, over the eye of the hook, onto the line. The fish shakes its head, and that worm gets cut by the line, and it goes flying off into the water. You lose the worm. You've got to buy a new worm, or you've got to re-rig. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort, a lot of frustration, it takes money. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. We're going to go over 2 or 3 things here that I think you're going to be really interested in. This is going to be an easy one, so let's sit down. I'll show you how to fix that problem of losing worms when you're fishing wacky. All right, here we have it, the Wacky Rig, one of the most famous rigs in the history of bass fishing. And when they first came out, this is exactly how we fished them. We had no O-rings, we had nothing but what I call a naked worm that was slipped onto the hook, and that's how we fished them. You could cast these things off, the fish bit them once, they'd pull them off. You could lose these things in a number of ways. Maybe one of the most frustrating ways, and one of the things that I'm going to talk about today, is a lot of times when you finally got a fish to grab this and get the hook, the worm would slide up the shank of the hook over the eye of the hook, and it'd come up on your line, and about halfway through the fight, the fish would start shaking his head, and it would basically throw the worm off of your line. The line would cut through the worm, and you'd lose the worm. That was really frustrating, but sometimes you even caught the fish and the worm remained on the line, and you could literally pull the worm down the line and pull it back onto the hook. Now the problem with that is most of us use Palomar knots. I have a Palomar knot here, and you'll see I left the tag in. It's really long out here, and even if you cut that as short as you can, as you slide this worm from the line back down to the hook, not only the eye of the hook does damage, but that Palomar knot, especially if you're using 15-20 pound test, as you put this thing back on here, it's damaged the worm. So once you get it back on here like this, you're fishing with damaged goods. You may get one more fish out of that. Along came an O-ring. You guys, I'm just going to go through this real quick. Along came an O-ring that you slid on there. These were slightly better than fishing them naked, but they still cut through the worm. You lost a lot of worms. Next thing that came up was what they call a wacky saddle, and this thing had 2 O-rings on it, and it wrapped around the worm, and it gave the worm a little more protection. Not a bad idea. Use those for years, but a couple years ago, VMC came out with what they call a crossover ring. And that was the thing to do. I fished these things for several years. I still got a ton of them. And what these are is they are a saddle, a rubber saddle that goes on the hook, or on the worm, excuse me. You have a nice set of pliers. You put the saddle in here, and you spread them apart. And let's just put one on. Let's see. We'll throw one on here. I already have one on, but I know that one's damaged. So, you put them on there, you slide them off, and now you have a nice saddle on here. And these work pretty well because they have more girth to them. I've got one of the ones that I make, and you can see the amount of the width on this thing. It really protects the worm, and it does a good job for the most part. If you guys are still using these, the one nice thing that I used to think about with these with the pliers is they have a nice little slot where you can keep the saddles in, and when you need one, you've got them right here in the set of pliers. What I have found it works better for me is just using a safety pin like this, and you can see I've got a bunch of these on. What I've done is I've got a big safety pin. I cut off the point of this because when I keep these, I generally keep them in my pocket. The first safety thing about a safety pin is you don't want it opening up in your pocket and sticking you in, well, shish kebabbing whatever you have down there. But you could put about 10 of these on, put them in your pocket, and the problem that I was having, because I had so many different sizes and different O-rings, I'd put them in my box, my tackle box, and then when I wanted the proper size, it wasn't there. I'd have to fish through it. So that's a nice little trick. And you guys that know about the wacky, VMC crossovers, they have a, hopefully you can see this little nub up here where my tip of my finger is, that has a hole this way and a hole this way, so you can put a hook in it, either crossways or in line with the worm, and that's what holds the worm. That is great, but the problem is a lot of times that will, especially if you have a smaller hook with a small barb, you can still cast them off and you can still have problems. If you're still using these, my suggestion is to not use the hole that VMC provides. What I want you to do is take the hook and poke it right into the middle of the saddle and come out, I'll show you this when I get it rigged, through the other end of the saddle. So now I have this saddle coming in through the middle of it. Let's see, hopefully you guys can see that there. And this will not, it can't move. It can't move, and basically it can't go over the eye of the hook. It's too hard to get it through the eye of the hook. Works great, and you're going to lose a heck of a lot less worms rigging it like that. Now here's the thing that a couple other things that you can do. I also use these things called bait buttons for a long time, and they're just a little white plastic button. I've got a little tool to put this on, and you press this into the tool. One of the things you can do if you're still having problems with your baits riding up the hook, and this doesn't have to necessarily be a worm, it could be anything you're using, you can put one of these bait buttons on and see what we have there. And these are generally used for keeping Kitech type baits, you know, the head of them from sliding down. But what happens is this goes up on the hook shank, and it can't get over the, it's hard plastic, it can't get over the eye of the hook. So when you put your, even if you're using a naked worm, and believe me, sometimes this is the best way to go. It gives it the most action, and it probably catches more fish than anything. But with this, the worm can't ride up over the bait button. Now, if you don't want to go for the bait button tool and going out and buying the bait buttons, here's another thing that you can do, and this is a little trick that I use a lot of times just to protect my worms. I'm trying to get this bait button off here, and then we'll show you another little deal. Okay, let's get this thing off here, maybe. These things are tough, I'll tell you that. Might take the rest of the video. Okay, we got that off. Another thing you can do is just go out and buy a sequins at your local hobby shop. I've got one, they come in all different colors. This happens to be a red one. That pops down over there, and you have the same thing. This thing can't go above the eye of the hook, so this guy here basically can't get past the eye. It's not going to ride up on your line. Now, last but not least, and this is what I have been doing the last couple years, and I think I finally found a very beautiful thing, and it is using shrink wrap. this shrink wrap is super tough, and you can cut it to any length you want. The wider the shrink wrap, the wider the band, the more it's going to protect the worm itself. And you could basically just pull the shrink wrap on, hit them with heat, and they'll shrink down around the worm. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go completely through the middle of the worm. I'll rig this one here. So that is going completely through the worm and both sides of the band. This thing is going nowhere. Hello, look at that. I didn't even think about doing that until I did that in the video. Look at that. You're not going to cast that thing off. No way. I might get it hooked in my leg, but I'm not going to cast it off. And the other thing, this is tough enough stuff so that it will not go over the eye of the hook. I don't care what you do. That's it. For my money, these shrink wraps are the way to go. You can go down and get yourself some shrink wrap in any tons of different colors, tons of different sizes. Very inexpensive. I think at Harbor Freight you can get a whole little kit that has enough shrink wrap in it in different sizes to make 500 of these things. I cut them all up. When I get a couple new packs of Cincos, I take them at home and I thread these things on the Cinco. I heat them up with a heat gun. Usually plastisol, I think, starts to melt at about 350 degrees. So if you're careful, you can even use a little open flame. Shrink that around there. It'll shrink on the worms. Put the worm back in the bag. You've got all of these wacky worms ready to go, and all you have to do is thread them exactly like I have them on, and that's what you're going to get. They're not going to fly off, and even when a fish gets this thing and they push up the eye, it's not coming off. Give it a try. I think you're going to save yourself a lot of time and frustration. I want to thank all of you guys for watching, and if you have any questions, hit me up at scooper, it's SCOOPER 956-1032, and if I failed to explain anything that you need explained a little deeper, let me know, and I'll get back to you, and we'll get you heading the right direction, and you won't have to come home and kick your dog. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the river. Good luck.